everybody, welcome to It Tastes Different Gaming Appetizers. What's on the news tonight? Former PlayStation boss says subscription services like Xbox Game Pass could be dangerous for devs, and that Sony delivers a healthier model with PlayStation Plus. All right, before we get into it, make sure to like the video, subscribe, hit the bell notifications, stay up to date with new videos that we do all the time. And let's get into it. So former boss Shuhei Yoshida has commented on the rise of subscription services in gaming, warning that those could become dangerous, not dangerous, but dangerous if not handled properly. Yoshida is one of the biggest names in PlayStation's success, having been around since the original console's concept phase way back in the earlier days. He has since left the company. But since then, we talked about him before on something else that he was talking about. I don't remember what it was, but we talked about it. So check on our videos and you'll see what we were talked about that he was talking about that I don't remember he was talking about. But he's basically gone on a tear about different things. So speaking to a game developer at a recent Gamescom event, Yoshida shares his feelings towards subscription services like Xbox Game Pass, warning that those could become dangerous if they become the main method of releasing games. If the only way for people to play games is through subscriptions, that's really dangerous, because what type of games can be created will be dictated by the owner of the subscription services, Yoshida says. He adds that there always must be fresh new ideas tried by small developers that create the new wave of development. But if the big companies dictate what games can be created, I don't think that will advance the industry. Yoshida also speaks about Microsoft's approach to releasing first-party games on their subscription service day one, suggesting that Sony's approach to releasing games at a premium price point before eventually bringing them to the subscription is a better option, although he does admit his bias as a former PlayStation executive. I believe the way Sony approached subscriptions is healthier, not to over promise and to allow people to spend money to buy the new games. Yoshida explains, saying that by the time the first-party games are added to PlayStation Plus, there won't be as many people willing to buy those games at the initial price. That way, Sony can get more eyes on the game and potentially rope a few more people into buying the sequel once it releases. So we'll go around and see what everybody thinks of this. I think he's a little bit biased there. I don't think PlayStation's subscription model is really helping them out too much. It's very pricey for a very, and it takes a long time before newer games approach that. And I think I understand kind of what he's talking about as far as, developers or publishers out there mainly wanting to publish a game and have the most people, I guess, come out and purchase it. But I look at games that like Expedition 33 as an example, right? And that one came to Game Pass. And I think, I don't know, we don't know yet, but I think it coming to Game Pass probably helped, besides the fact that it's an awesome game, probably helped put more eyes and more people playing that, right? And put it into more people's hands, right? They sold a lot of copies of that game, but I think that may have pushed people more forward into knowing more about this game and realizing from word of mouth from people that's played it on Game Pass or whatever, like this game is really awesome. And then people are like, oh, cool. I don't have Game Pass, but I'll go out and buy it, right? Because I've heard of word of mouth and things like that. So you get more of an audience that has Game Pass that's going to buy or play and experience the game. And then that word of mouth goes out. And then the people that want to either support the developers or, they don't subscribe to Game Pass or whatever, they're like, cool, I want to go buy that, right? And they go out and they purchase it, right? You always had those people that were going to purchase it anyway, but you had those people that may have been on the fence or didn't know anything about the game. And I think that may have helped get more eyes on it and more people to go out and try it, right? Because even if it was a good game, and it is, I think being behind, it wasn't a full price game. It was like $50, right? So, or 50 or 60 or something like that, right? I think somewhere around there. I know it wasn't a $70 game, but, but even with that, I think that having it on Game Pass probably, I think it helped push that game into a bigger audience ultimately, right? Not that it really needed that help, but I mean, it was coming up against like Elden Ring Oblivion's remake that, they were expecting might have hampered, um, or not Elden Ring, sorry. Night Rain just came out. Um, Elder Scrolls Oblivion, um, that they thought was going to hamper the sales of Expedition. And I think with Expedition coming out like a few days later on Game Pass, I think that helped it because they got more eyes people into Game Pass with that Oblivion, right? And people are like, oh, Oblivion, cool. And then like a few days later, this other game comes out. And like, hey, well, I got Game Pass. I'll check this out too. And then it's like, oh, this is awesome, right? And so that got more people into it. So I don't know. I think Sony's idea of holding back these titles in certain cases may be not beneficial for certain groups, right? And especially Yoshida talked about smaller developers, that may hinder, especially small developers or new developers coming to the gaming scene, right? And trying to get their game out there and in front of people. We've saw a lot of games with big companies or smaller companies that didn't go that path or any sort of like service like that, and they just died out as soon as they came out, right? Because there was no exposure to it, nobody knew about it. We talked about a game like that, even though the game was horrible. But we talked about a game like that, right? Unknown Nine or whatever. Like nobody even knew the game existed until we read the article about how horrible the game was. But I mean, again, if it was on Game Pass, it probably would have gotten more exposure, even though it was not a great game to begin with. But still, though, right? So I think it helps in certain cases. But we'll go around and see what everybody else thinks. Pat, what do you think of Yoshida and the subscription models?
I think Yoshida's talking out his ass and also talking in circles, because how is a service like Game Pass dictating what developers are making? Because Game Pass is not just Microsoft games, right? I'd read an article not too long ago that said Xbox paid out roughly $1 billion to get other game developers' games on their platform. For a service that makes $5 billion, they spent 1/5 of their revenue just bringing titles in. And from what I understand, it could be Microsoft could just be doing upfront pricing, or they could be doing royalty pricing, all kinds of stuff. And who knows what Expedition 33 did to get their stuff on the platform. So I think that he's talking out of his ass and through ignorance and talking in circles, right? Because what he said makes absolutely no sense. Like, how does Game Pass dictate what developers are making that is outside of Microsoft's control, right? It doesn't make any sense. And then PlayStation Plus is a joke. I mean, I think it's a joke. And the only reason they make money off of it is people subscribe to it to probably something 1 month and forget about it, in my opinion. So, and Game Pass to me has just gotten too expensive in general. But and I'll be honest, the only reason that I did pick up Expedition 33 was because of Game Pass, because I had I can't remember what we were playing on Game Pass. We were playing something as a group, and I got like a CD key subscription for like $6 or something for the month. Because we were playing something co-op together that was on there or whatever. But I was really interested in Expedition 33 until I got wind of the whole parry and interactive attack, right? You have to mash buttons at the perfect time for attacks, and same thing for parry. And I hate that. I absolutely loathe that system in turn-based RPGs. I hate it with a passion. But I'm like, well, I got like a week left of Game Pass on the $6 subscription, so let me check it out. And I absolutely love Expedition 33. I got over the hang up of the parry system and the dodge parry system, as well as the attack, because the game is beautiful, the sound is awesome, the gameplay is great, and I would not have played it more than likely, and unless it would have been like years down the road when it was like a $10, $20 game or something, if it wasn't for Game Pass, because I had already written it off because I don't like the dodge parry systems in my turn-based RPGs. I play turn-based RPGs for the story and the cool arts and the scenes and the fights and all that stuff, and I want to pay attention to that and not having to pay attention to the, I need to dodge at this time. So what I'm waiting for is the animation, or in this case, it's the audio cues and things like that, because it's more audio cues in Expedition 33 than visuals on that stuff a little bit. And so I prefer just to do that. And I still would prefer, I would prefer if Expedition 33 had put something in there that I didn't have to feel like I needed to do that. But at the same time, it was a good enough game that it made me overcome it. So I would not have played it. So I'm in that boat of Game Pass help this get exposure. And I don't know if my playthrough gives them a royalty or if they just Microsoft paid them up front. I don't know. So, it definitely was a really popular game. And so I think Game Pass does help some smaller studios get their name out there, because I play tons of crap off Game Pass I would have never picked up ever. And I'm just like, okay, so cool. So either they got a front end kickback from Microsoft for their game being on there, or they got a royalty. Hopefully it was royalty. That way I contributed to the amount of royalty that they got, or could have been a combination of that. But I think Game Pass, it's really weird, that comment about that, how they can control the games. I'm like, they don't control the games that are outside of their studios, right? So I don't know where that thought's coming from. And if Microsoft was losing money on it or not making enough money, then they wouldn't be putting their first part. I think that Microsoft would be the first one to tell Xbox, you stop that shit right now. I don't know, like I said, Game Pass, what I read, made them $5 billion last year. Is that enough? I mean, I think Xbox makes $80 billion a year in general. So it's a $5 billion of that is Game Pass. Are they really losing money? I don't know. That's something I don't know. They raised their prices not too long ago to $20 for Ultimate. The revenue probably, I don't know if it went up. We'll have to see at the end of their fiscal year for 2025 how much of a dent it made or how much they lost. But to me, I think that this conversation that he's having is disgenuine at the very least.
I think he's having it with his investors, with Sony investors.
Well, I mean, he's no longer on Sony's board.
Oh,
I don't know if he's on the board.
Still got stock.
Yeah, I mean, him talking about how PlayStation Plus. I think PlayStation Plus is a joke. It's.
I wouldn't say
every time I log on,
say it's a joke.
When I was subscribed, I'm like, there's nothing I want to play. The discount was probably the best thing about it, but you get a discount with Game Pass as well on Xbox. Yeah. So Xbox gives you the best of both worlds, a bunch of free games, day one games, as well as the discounts. I think the PlayStation Plus is way less value than the Game Pass one is. And this is coming from somebody who actually loads the price that Xbox jumped their thing up to, because I hate it. So I make sure I stick it to them every time by getting something off CD keys. I think $7.
I think PlayStation Plus would be worth it if Sony put their first party titles day one out on that service. I think it would be a more popular service and definitely worth the price,
because they don't put out enough day one. They don't put out enough first party day one games.
Now, but hold on, they have that's Microsoft's problem too, though. They don't. Well, now this year they've been nailing it with their day ones.
Yeah, but none of those are first party though.
No, Indiana Jones.
Well,
I guess technically Indiana Jones was last year, but
like I said,
it's still available for Game of the Year though.
But like I said, so I find no value in the PlayStation Plus, and the PlayStation Plus is not the one that comes with the back compatible the old thing.
Most
that's
expensive one.
Yeah, that's the PlayStation Plus Ultimate or whatever it is. So
that's where I was going to go.
Plus Ultra Ultimate.
It's not a bad service, but their price configuration's backwards. Back and pat should be on the lowest tier.
Not for them, because they want you to pay for that old stuff.
Exactly.
You got to pay for their work.
Tier.
You got to pay for that work.
No, he's definitely full of shit, and what he says doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. I was looking through just some random Game Pass games here. The amount of variety in Game Pass is pretty astounding. Now, I haven't played all of them, so don't get me wrong. But I mean, Expedition 33. It's, I believe, all three of us calling Game of the Year in our categories so far this year. Elder Scrolls Oblivion, the remaster, is getting great reviews. Metaphor, okay, another fantastic RPG. But then you have things like Call of Duty. You have all these simulator games. You have the Division 2 on it. Granted, that one's an older game. It's still out there. South of Midnight. That's another completely odd game that's really fun. I enjoy it. Blueprints. Pat said something about it, and I jumped in. That freaking game is fun.
Yeah, I mean, that one, that's a good example too. Shane,
I would have never played that.
I would have never played that, right? Yeah. I only played it because of you guys talk about it. And also it was on Game Pass. So I was like, oh, I'll check it out. You know? and like Pat said, there's a lot of games like that, like the Kingdom 2 Crowns.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Yes. I played the crap out of that game.
Yeah, and you told us about it, and we played it.
And it was like, I wasn't expecting to play it at all. It was just like came on Game Pass and like, I don't know, I'm bored one night. I'm like, I'll check this out. And then it's like, and I got freaking addicted.
I played Yes, Your Grace. I would have never played that outside of Game Pass.
Yeah.
Right.
The thing about Game Pass, from what I've been able to just, my experience with it, is it gives developers an opportunity to be checked out. Because you're not paying extra to, this game looks kind of neat. Look at the art style. I'll jump in and give it a whirl. Why not? You're not going to run it. They're not all going to be bangers, but guess what? Game Pass is still a lot better than the Wii library. I mean, all the thousands of shovelware games shoved on that. Game Pass is still 10 times better. Now, I know it's a weird kind of comparison, but I've found more games on Game Pass that never would have thought to check out if it wasn't for you guys talking about it, or I seen an ad, or just one. I thought, well, that cover art looks interesting. You know,
I just don't get this guy's comments because he says he talks about
what is healthy. What he said about buying the game.
Well, what I like is that
he says so stupid.
He says Sony's approach to releasing games at a premium price before eventually bringing them to a subscription is the better option. Whose option? Sony's option,
yes.
Not the consumer, the gamer's option, right? Because that by you just
that's
saying
healthier
premium,
for Sony. That's them eating their fucking vegetables,
right? By him saying premium price, he means expensive ass game instead of paying if you're paying full price $20 or $15 or whatever, or you get CD keys for $6 or $7 a month. It's better for Sony than it is for Microsoft, but better for the consumer is Game Pass. I still think if you play a few games a month, it's probably still worth it. It's pricey in my opinion. Game Pass because I'm not playing on the Xbox anymore. I don't play my Xbox. I turned it on last week for the first time in probably 5 months or 4 months or something like that. And just to play, because I wanted to play Spiritfarer. I'd heard some good things about it and I wanted to play it. And I played it and I beat it on Game Pass on the Xbox because I had it because I got the $6 a month Ultimate from CD Keys. But I just think that, I don't know. I think that, I think this guy's just talking out of his ass and from a place of either ignorance or a place of he's basically being untruthful. I think he's being dishonest.
He's covering his stocks is what he's doing.
Yeah, because he's not being forthcoming because none of his comments make any sense. Like,
no, the premium thing was a load of donkey sack. And then, the way he tried to express, okay, well then a year later, if it comes out on, however you phrase it, if it comes out on PlayStation Plus Ultra Donkey Gum, then that'll entice people to play the upcoming sequel.
Yeah.
No, they would have been enticed regardless.
Yeah. Well, because his comments are just stupid. Like, I believe the way Sony approached subscription is healthier for the developer probably, but not for the consumer market. Not to overpromise. I don't know how Game Pass overpromises anything. They don't tell you what's coming out until right before it comes out. Usually.
Now, and the overpromising I can kind of understand, but only as a Microsoft game. They've overpromised a lot of their games. I'm still waiting for goddamn Scalebound. Okay.
majority of what's that one, yeah, that's good. But the majority of what's on Game Pass isn't their stuff too, right? I mean, it's just a lot of third party stuff. So that's how do you overpromise that? You don't know what Microsoft's going to get, and like I said, most of the announcements that aren't like first party, you don't know about until like the month before, like a couple weeks before, typically, and then But then he says there won't be many people willing to buy those games at that initial price. Of course there won't, because that's what the whole point of a subscription service is: affordable gaming. Yeah. If Microsoft's losing money, they will up the price or cancel the whole plan eventually. So
and if it wasn't a good deal for developers,
third parties,
they wouldn't sign up to be on it, right? So clearly it has to be somewhat of a good deal for them, because not just for the exposure for smaller developers, but also like even bigger games, like even if there's a small time frame where they don't come out day one, but you see like, Metaphor, like Shane was saying, is on there now, right? And that's been out for like a year, almost a year now. Mm-hmm. But that's also a great game, right? And so that probably got quite a bit of exposure when it came out. It's an Atlas game, but with it on Game Pass.
That one was nominated for Game of the Year, was it not? For an RPG?
Might have been, or it was nominated for some.
It was on the Game Awards, that's for
sure.
Yeah. But it was a great game, and so it's like, now it's going to get more exposure for the people that didn't play, or maybe they weren't that interested in Atlas games or this game in particular. Now that it's on Game Pass, they'll be like, oh well, sure, I'll check it out, right? And if you really, for some people, if they really love a developer or they really love a game, they're more likely, even having Game Pass, they're probably going to at some point buy the game to support the developer, right? I mean, for me, I played Expedition 33 on Xbox. I want to see Sandfall continue. I think it's a great company, and so I put Expedition 33 on my wish list on Steam, because I do want to pick it up to own it myself eventually. To support the developer and also have a copy of it that's not just, because it eventually come off of Game Pass, right? Because I think that game is great, and I think the developer is really good, and I want to see the developer continue to strive and make awesome games and not be swallowed up by some big publisher and, tore up like most of these small developers end up usually being. But like, Yoshida also said, and this is in a different article, and I'm not going to read the article here, but I'm just going to read the caption. Former PlayStation executive says $70 or $80 games are a steal. As long as people choose carefully how they spend their money, I don't think they should be complaining.
Okay,
out of touch.
Right there.
Out of touch.
He's full of Yoshida, because that's effing stupid.
He Yoshida'd his pants, that's for sure.
Yeah, he Yoshida'd himself. And
I don't know who there is still for, because most of the $80 to $70 games that we have bought and played usually suck compared to the $40 or $50 games that come from smaller.
We get more enjoyment out of that stuff. Yeah.
Oh, easily. And we talked about this the other day. I can't remember who it was complaining, or was, complaining basically about these smaller development teams making these top-notch games for, a lower price. And it's just proof that you don't need to throw 1,000 employees and $1 billion at a game to make something that gamers want, that sells. What you need is dedication, a good ideal, leadership, and passion in the game industry. It's like Pat always says, games are art. And if you want to sell your art, you got to quit making that ugly ass shit. And give the people what they truly want.
Right. And you got to look at, like, if you ever get the chance, anybody out there, look at the making of Expedition 33. It's insane. Like, the guy that did the music, the director found him on SoundCloud, or SoundCloud. It was a discussion. It was his music was on SoundCloud, but he had went into a like Discord discussion, had like 10 people on it, and that composer at the same time had logged on like an hour later, and he was asking like, hey, anybody want to compose for my game? And that guy said, yeah, sure, I'll do it.
And the Claire Obscura soundtrack is
awesome.
Amazing. It's amazing,
right? It's amazing, and it's like,
it's a banger. I like listen to it.
And the lady that wrote the script for it used to be like an investor or a advisor or something like that for like an investment firm or something. Is what her former job was, and then she left there and just and hired on there to write a story for this game, which the story is amazing, right? So it's like it's crazy when you get all these people together who are passionate about a project, right? They come together. You have one passionate developer who wants to find other passionate people, and they all come together to make an amazing game.
Until they get bought out by these larger studios, and then
these larger studios screw
somebody buys them up. Somebody buys Sandfall, and we lose that art, that their artistic freedom.
Yeah.
But hopefully, somebody says, "Look, I want to publish for you, but you do your own thing." That's great, but leave that company alone. Hazelight, they should be left alone. There's so many great developers out there that are small that just need to be able to do their thing. And that's perfectly fine with me.
Well, it's just like Baldur's Gate, Larian, they're not a small studio, but like, don't screw with them, right? Just let them do whatever they're doing next. Let them cook and don't mess with them because they will make a banger.
All you need to do is help them is bring them a pizza. And say, I'm just going to set this here.
You guys need anything? No? Okay,
keep doing. Yeah. I believe in you.
They will continue to make hits for you. Just let them do their thing, right?
Yep.
Yeah. It's a good game, like I said, but yeah. I don't know, man. But yeah, I think this guy's being dishonest and disgenuine.
So. Oh, yeah. I truly don't believe he truly believes in what he said. I really don't, because it doesn't make just any sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
Unless you have investments in something.
Yeah. Right. And he still might be on the board.
You really honestly can't find you. Why would you expect something unbiased from somebody who actually, I would not expect somebody not to be biased that you interviewed that worked for Microsoft, that was an exec for Microsoft or an exec for Sony. Why would you ask them, do you think PlayStation Plus is a good deal? Why would I ever ask a Microsoft exec that? Why would I ever ask a Sony exec if Game Pass is what do you think of Game Pass?
Oh yeah, that's like asking a politician. You
killed
off all those people. What do you think?
Yeah, it's disingenuous,
great.
Right?
It is great. It's going to be great for everybody.
Yeah, it's just disingenuous. Like, you're never going to get a good answer. And even if you were to ask Phil Spencer, who's always comes off as pro gamer, it's political. His answer is going to be political and PC, because he's made a name. Well, he's made a name for himself, or a face for himself, as the console wars guy, right? He's like, we can all be successful, but it's still just, in my opinion, a political facade to be pro gamer, because in the end, he's still pro Microsoft, and he wouldn't probably bat an eye if Sony went under.
Yeah. I think he started off as pro gamer, and then he
got corporatized, right?
Exactly. And the better he was doing, the more corporate was giving him high fives and pats on the back, and then he kind of forgot about the gamer, it looks like. So
had to retire the knee pads.
He had to get bigger knee pads.
He's got a pillow now.
He had to get those Gates branded knee pads.
He got them installed.
Permanent fixture, yeah. Permanent fixture.
Go Gadget knee pads.
Advanced. All right, you guys got anything else you want to add?
Nope, not before Phil gets his knees hurt.
All right. Well, let us know down in the comments below. What do you think of PlayStation Plus and Xbox Game Pass? What do you think is a better, service model? Do you subscribe to either one of them? I was subscribed to PlayStation Plus for a little while, and there was sometimes some games on there, but there's definitely more games on Game Pass that I try out than on PlayStation Plus. PlayStation Plus would occasionally have some that would sprinkle in now and then, but a lot of it's stuff that I already played or already owned or had no interest in. So, but let us know down in the comments below what you think. Other than that, thanks for watching. Make sure you like the video, subscribe, hit the bell notifications, all that good stuff. We'll see you next time.
See ya.